Hey everyone, this is Ultra Runner. Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about repaints and retools. You know, what's acceptable, what's unacceptable, what are you expecting, what would you like to see as far as repaints and retools are concerned. And part of this is because I know the repaints and retools get a lot of hate because, you know, we want new molds for everything, but there are some, you know, I think that are viable. And then I think there are some where it just makes sense, you know, as far as, and then there's some that are just like, hey, well, nobody's ever done this, and I really like something like that, as far as that's concerned. So I'm really looking at maybe the SS86 line only right now, you know, and we could always look at other lines from there. But I want to start off kind of like with like the battle damage. So the battle damage, Brawn, Ironhide, Prowl, Ratchet. So we have those, and of course those are repaints and retools because they're slightly modified versions of the original, you know, with the battle damage. You know, like here you got the damage in the chest, you know, here you got the damage in the chest, the changed faces. So it's really the same figure with just some small alterations. Now, did we want those? I don't think anybody really thought we were going to get those. I don't think anybody really asked for those. But once we got them, I picked them up, and I thought they were pretty cool. Then you look at stuff like, you know, Cliff Jumper and Bumblebee. You know, this is the original Cliff Jumper we got, which was from Legends, and then or from Legacy, should I say? And then we got the brand new SS86 Bumblebee mode, which is now going to be retooled to give us an updated Cliff Jumper. Which I think the Cliff Jumper actually looks better in that mold than the Bumblebee does, but the Bumblebee doesn't look terrible, even though people give a lot of hate. You know, the Prime here, we got the clean version of Prime, pristine, and then we've got the battle damage, of course, which is a retool / slight repaint. You know, and so that's the same figure. You know, the Junkions are perfect examples, but of course we expect those because that is a viable option to have the same, you know, basically race have just slight mods to it. That's how it was on the cartoon or in the movie. And so, you know, some of these are what we consider viable. You know, you got Scourge in the sweeps. Scourge was one color, sweeps were a slightly different color, just a slight repaint. So not a retool at all. You know, I think they have the same face and everything. You know, and of course, you come over to the Battle Damage Megatron, and the Clean Megatron again. This was a slight repaint because the plastic, I guess, you know, the casting was a little different for the plastic goes, and I've made a video on that, so you can guys check that out. Slight retool, and then of course, you know, you have the Seekers, and the Seekers are the same way. Seekers are, you know, faces are redone if they actually go that route, which they seem to be doing with the new ones, and it's a repaint because it's the exact same jet, just in different colors. So for those, you know, we see those and we expect those to be repaints, but some of them like take the battle damage. I don't think anybody was really expecting that, and a lot of people aren't going to pick those up because maybe you don't want it and maybe you don't care. You know, maybe you're one of these purists that want all your Transformers to be clean. But like for me, I do like the repaints. I think the repaints do a great job, and some of the retools of giving us a little bit more options in our line. So I'll give you an example. So you look at, we got Sunstreaker here, and I'm sure we're going to end up getting the new Sideswipe. That's SS86, not in the movie, you know, kind of deal what they were doing before. You know, the Hound here, which is basically same as the Detrius we had before, repaint. So, you know, as far as those concerned, I mean, a lot of those are expected, kind of unexpected, but what about things that you want? So like once we got the battle damage version of those, first thing I thought about was, okay, what other Autobots could we get that are battle damage? Well, most of these guys don't really get hurt. You know, we got Cup, which is kind of cool. Cup could cover apart. So if you wanted to have him, which was a great play value, they added to that. Dinobots didn't get hurt. Son of Fred, same thing with Ultra Magnus. He got hurt, but you know, he really didn't look too damaged, and they gave us the playability too, where you can take him apart and have him disassembled. You know, Hot Rod was fine. Now, this is to me where I really want to see some of the recolors. So I'd love to see Galvatron in the reformatting. You know, I think that was a cool. They haven't done that in a long time, but I love to see this body in the reformatting with up-to-date paint schemes and a better look than the previous. Because the previous one was okay, but I'd love to see an updated version of that. And then the same thing for Megatron. You know, have Megatron where he's going through the formatting, so we can actually have it play out where it's battle damage Megatron into reformatting Megatron into reformatting or initial formatting of Galvatron into full-on Galvatron, which would be super cool. Same thing for Scourge. You know, have him go from what is he, Skywarp? So go from Skywarp into you know, from like a battle damage Skywarp. So I'd love to see that secret mold. So this secret mold here, the new one in Skywarp, which I have in my pile of loot. I haven't shipped it yet, but have him, you know, have Skywarp, or have, in this case, Thundercracker. Have Thundercracker go to from battle damage, and so get a battle damage version of him into reformatting, and to pre-formatting, and then to Scourge here, and then the same thing with the sweeps. You know, it's like the battle damage like the cost into the sweeps, and then the same thing for Skyward, when Skyward comes into Cyclonus, you know, and obviously I'm a Cyclonus, Thundercracker, Skyward or Cyclonus kind of guy. So, or in that camp anyway. So, but those are like really cool options. I would think, you know, when this line is, you know, really coming to an end, you know, and we may get those sooner than later because, you know, those were already created in other legacy lines for you know, Power to Prime, things like that for Hasbro. But you know, things like that I think would be kind of neat to have something along those lines for actual repaints that I do want. You know, this Coronation Starscream, you know, they announced a new one. The new mold doesn't have the coronation pieces. This piece doesn't fit, but it'd be great to get a Coronation Starscream with the parts and the one that's all like grayed out and about to blow up. You know, that'd be a cool one to have. You know, Sharkticons with the teeth punched out. You know, that'd be a neat one to have. Like I said, this is stuff that were, if they made it, it could be low production. It wouldn't cost them much to do it. And of course, we know just from what they state, you know, at Hasbro and other toy companies, Repaints and Retools help them to fund new molds. So as these guys start getting away from SS86 and start really focusing on other lines, like hopefully Transformers Prime, because I loved Prime. I mean, I loved it. I'd probably go all in on that line too with updated molds and things like that. But whether it's that, Energon, you know, animated, the live action movies, whatever the case might be, you know, I love for everybody else to get their shine too, like SS86 is getting a lot, but we know why. It's because it's deep in the anniversary line, you know, timeline, and then of course, that's usually a good reason to jump into going all in, which Hasbro has done for this line, and they've done a great job. Yeah, we have a lot of repaints and retools, but at some point, you know, I think some of that love's got to go to one of the other lines, and so, you know, so that's just kind of what I've been seeing as far as a few repaints and retools I'm thinking about. You know, some of these are just improvements, like Perceptor was an improvement, color, you know, fit and finish, and then of course they fixed the back of them where the back of this one here had that just gap there. So I can get this to focus. Had that just gap there when he transformed, his head was there. Was a new one, doesn't have that. The new one is very clean. Like I said, plus the paint and fit and finish was much better too. So like the back of them now actually is closed up. You know, they could have done that from the start, but they didn't. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, I'd love to see some new versions of, you know, Blur and RC. I think they could do a better job with those two as well. Getting RC's backpack down, getting a couple a little more accurate color wise, but and the face sculpt I think could be a little bit better. You know, they've crushed it with Hot Rod and a lot of these guys here. I know we got the Alligator Cons coming, and hopefully we got the, you know, the Quintezon Judge, and, you know, the Quintezons coming, and they're probably going to be repaints or re-releases of the previous figures we got. But all in all, and I'll show you kind of like over here with the secrets from the War for Cybertron series. Those are repaints we expect, and so that's those are, I think, the ones we tolerate. But we give Repaints and Retools a lot of a headache. Like, this is the zombie version of the secret mold from the War for Cybertron series. Well, did we ask for that? No, but somebody probably wanted one of those just because they look pretty cool. Devastator's gonna probably get a recolor into his G2 color. Along with a lot of these other ones here. They've already done the recolor for G2 Grimlock. And actually all the Dinobots now, I think they're all officially either out or ready for pre-order. So, but we expect that because G2 was just based a different coloration. It was a super 90s, bright color craziness look to existing figures that had a more kind of subdued and laid back kind of look. So, but as far as me, as I'm concerned, I really love to see just in the same line. So not even looking at G2 from that perspective, because of course we expect G2. So those are expected repaints and retools. What I'm referring to is unexpected repaints and retools, which are like the battle damage, or ones that you may want to see. So like say for me, I'd love to see the reformatted version of those guys. The Insecticons are coming out, battle damage version of the Insecticons. Maybe they don't go reformatted on all those guys, because I really only need the reformatting for the big three, which is Galvatron, Cyclonus, and Scourge. But I'd love to see battle damage version of the Insecticons, because those guys got destroyed. Absolutely. And any of the guys who were on the back of Astro Train here, that were Eyes have it, and they kicked all the nays out into space. So all those guys would be great to have. For me personally, I would love to have those. Is there any specific ones you guys would be looking for that you kind of go, hey, maybe it's not a priority right up front, so you're like, hey, let me get through the entire line and then I'll pick up some repaints? Or there's some repaints you like to have now. As for me, I'd like to have it for my display so I can actually do some mods, because I think I told you guys in one of those videos, I got my Optimus up here, my clean one. I'm gonna pick up another, and hopefully this is another situation here. I'd love to get Prime without the cab. They've done it for, of course, this one here, the battle damage, but I'd like to have a clean one so I could have him doing the little, you got the touch jump, into, him gunning down the Decepticons, and have that actually mounted a little bit higher up. And so the only way to do that is to either buy a full Optimus Prime with the trailer and then have a trailer that I'm just not using, or they just do like maybe a instead of making a Commander class release, they make them a Leader class release, and we get just a Prime cab by itself. And I know they've done it in the past, but they haven't done it yet with SS86, and I think that's low-hanging fruit there. Again, not really a repaint or retool, it's just a modified re-release. So, and I would definitely pick that up, because I'd love to get probably maybe 2 of those to do that. In that scale, because I could always go get it in fourth party, but I'd really like to, do that in the scheme of Hasbro actually licensed product. Again, like I say, with the Dawson Bros here, those guys are all repaints and retools that we expect. Super easy, with Silver Streak, Blue Streak. My favorite of the Dawson Bros, Smokescreen, and of course you got Prowl over here. Get a better angle on him, that's the battle damage. But yeah, I guess this is kind of what I'm just kind of thinking through. And just because I was watching another YouTuber just gonna give so much shade to repaints and retools, like nobody asked for these, why are we getting them, why are they brand new molds for everything? Every time something comes out, it should be a brand new mold, and I think that's a little unrealistic, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not unrealistic to have a brand new mold, but I think if we're expecting that and we're not getting that, then that's a little different. But for the ones that we are expecting, repaints and retools, are we just okay with that because they were featured in the video, the movie, featured in the cartoon, whatever the case may be? let me know your thoughts and concerns down below. Are there any, let me know what repaints or retool that, now that you've kind of heard me talk about this, or you're like, oh, I'd love to get a version of this or a version of this from the SS86 line specifically, or if it's from a different line, that'd be great too. If that's something Hasbro's already working on, like with the Age of the Primes or whatever, which I didn't pick up any of those except for, I didn't pick up any of the Primes. I did pick up Superion. I think you guys already seen that. So, but yeah, just let me know in your comments down below. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Have a good one. Later.